I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.
Hello and welcome to another installment of Liberty Nation's Swamponomics videocast. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor. This week, the dollars and cents of President Donald Trump's 1,100-page One Big Beautiful Bill. Since the tax-writing House Ways and Means Committee released a draft text of the president's omnibus bill, various organizations and independent economists have combed through the fine print to determine the benefits and costs. Liberty Nation News recently combed through the details. If you have not read it, or you are unaware of what's inside the legislative text, here are the few of the main provisions. Permanently extending the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, temporarily raising the popular child tax credit, eliminating taxes on overtime pay and tips, temporarily allowing a deduction of up to $10,000 on car loan interest payments for vehicles made in America, raising the endowment taxes on universities, and increasing the SALT deduction limit to $40,000. It had initially been $30,000, but Speaker Mike Johnson and Republican lawmakers from large blue states reached an agreement. So while tax cuts were expected, what about spending reductions? Consider this for a moment. The Congressional Budget Office projects the U.S. government will spend $89.3 trillion over the next decade. The House tax bill plans to spend $88.1 trillion in the next 10 years. You do the math, that's a little more than $1 trillion. And what's worse is that the Senate version calls for $4 billion in cuts. Ouch. And this has forced a broad array of entities to forecast swelling budget deficits in the coming year. The CBO and the Joint Committee on Taxation, for example, estimate the tax package will increase the federal deficit by $3.8 trillion through 2034. Others, such as the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, say it will add more than $5 trillion to primary deficits. Now, it is worth noting that many of these off-sided estimates rely on growth of 2% or less. Why does this matter? Because tax cuts fuel economic growth, which, as the last Laffer curve tells us, will raise tax receipts. The President's Council of Economic Advisors released estimates of the positive economic effects of the tax bill. Here are some of the key takeaways. Real economic growth balloons by more than 5% over the next 4 years, more than $13,000 in take-home pay for a family with 2 children, and nearly $12,000 in higher wages per worker. Stephen Moore's Committee to Unleash Prosperity says that if even only half of these projections are realized, the tax bill's price tag declines by about $2 trillion. Even if the U.S. economy gains 3% growth from the Trump tax cuts, the deficit will be about $4 trillion smaller. Now, as Liberty Nation News has reported time and again, the CBO rescored the TCJA, determining that researchers at the nonpartisan budget watchdog were off by about $1.5 trillion, meaning that the Trump-era tax cuts generated more revenue than initially expected. Fiscal conservatives in the Republican Party, such as Representatives Thomas Massie and Chip Roy, might be right to be concerned about the budgetary impact. While the legislation will likely deliver better than expected revenues, the reality is that they will not be enough to balance the books. Once again, the GOP, when sitting in the opposition seat, griped about the previous administration's enormous spending. On the campaign trail, they vowed, once again, to rein in the spending and bolster the federal government's finances and balance the books and trim the national debt. Suffice it to say, spending is too big, the budget deficit is too large, and the national debt is out of control. Unless Congress took a chainsaw to mandatory spending, which accounts for about 2/3 of all federal spending, or ignited 6% annual economic growth, it will never be enough to turn red ink into black. What is also worth pointing out is that if the holy trinity of credit rating agencies keeps slashing America's credit score or issue downgraded outlooks, the cost to service the nation's ballooning debt will be even more expensive. Right now, it is about $1 trillion a year. The conclusion on the right is that the only way to make the unsustainable situation sustainable is to ensure the U.S. economy grows faster than the national debt. But when the government is spending $7 trillion per year, and the CBO estimates that will be $10 trillion in 10 years, how can this ever be achieved? That's it for me this week. Please read my full Swamponomics column on the pages of LibertyNation.com, and be sure to check out my previous Swamponomics TV videos and interviews. Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates or campaigns or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. Thank you. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.